Coming up this week in work.
New research shows that when leaders send emails at 10:47 p.m, it's not just annoying, it's creating a climate of constant connectivity that is draining entire teams. So what's really happening when the boss never switches off, and what does it cost the business?
Also this week, a tech company just shed 4,000 jobs, but they explicitly said it was because AI was replacing them. Yep, the CEO said it publicly. Was it the right thing to do, to be honest, or should they have sugarcoated it just a little bit?
And in truth or lie, leaders are born, not made. It's one of those statements people repeat like fact, but what does the actual research say? Are some people just wired to lead, or is it something anyone can develop?
And in the workplace surgery, you've done the work. You've got 3 strong candidates shortlisted for hiring, and now you're being quietly pressured to hire a senior leader's relative instead. They're not unqualified, but they're not the best. How do you push back?
This is Truth, Lies and Work, the award-winning podcast where behavioural science meets workplace culture, brought to you by the HubSpot Podcast Network.
The audio destination for business professionals. See, I can do it too.
You can.
My name is Al, I'm a business owner, and I'm here to ask the questions you might be afraid to.
My name is Leanne, I'm a chartered occupational psychologist, and I'm here to answer them. And together we help you simplify the science of work and build amazing workplace cultures.
We'll be right back after a quick word from our lovely sponsors. Hello, welcome back. It's been a bit of a week, hasn't it, in the news? Let's not touch any of that. None of that.
Goodness me. Anxiety is high, I think, this week.
Yeah, I think we'll just move swiftly along.
Bring you a bit of levity.
Yes.
You've got enough gravity.
Defying gravity.
You won't hear us talking about how somebody's laid off 4,000 people because of AI. How tone deaf with that being a week like this?
Oh, maybe I might quickly change my... No, I can't because it was sent in by Jeremy Klein, a friend of the show.
No, it's
lovely guy.
Important to talk about.
Yeah. So we'll talk about that. We'll tell you what we'll talk about. Our little miniature pincher, who's a bit of an arsehole at the moment.
Yeah, he's being a bit problematic recently, isn't he?
Yeah, if you're listening and you are a Caesar Milan, or if Caesar Milan's listening, hello,
yeah,
Caesar,
that'd be great.
Then drop us a line. He's spinning every time the big dog gets up. The little dog just spins round and round, tries to bite his tail. We had this last year. Unfortunately, ended up losing. We had to chop half of his tail. Well, I didn't do it. A vet did it for us, but chopped some of his tail off, and he's still doing it. So yeah,
he's 10 years old. He's a rescue. We've had about 18 months. So our working theory is it's usually this time where he'll be moved on. So whether his perception of time is maybe causing some anxiety because he's expecting a change perhaps, but then we're not sure if we're humanising him too much, trying to create boundaries, we're trying to keep the energy calm, which is very difficult, but we're trying to keep it calm. If anyone has any suggestions, tips, let us know, please.
Yeah, talking of times, it is time for your favourite time of the week, Leanne. It is time for the news roundup.
Yes, it is. I'll cue that jingle.
Okay, Lee, what have you got?
I've got a new word.
Talk to me.
Friction maxing.
What? No. This was my word for next week.
No.
Yeah, I've got it in my web queue and my read later. Oh, man.
Oh, well, you know exactly what it is.
No,
then.
I don't actually. I just saw it. It was on the BBC, wasn't it, yesterday or today, and I just saw it and I thought, right, I'm having that.
Oh, really?
Yeah, go on. I didn't look at what it was, though.
Oh, well, this is if the BBC has picked this up, then they're a bit late because this was a couple of weeks ago this came out. It was in the Financial Times by Isabel Berwick.
Oh, another friend of the show.
Yes, exactly, friend of the show. So, friction maxing, do you want to take a guess?
Maxing out your friction, so go... When I first saw it, I thought approaching problems with people head on. So you actually go out and seek the friction. You
go look for the fires.
You look for the fires. You rub up against someone. You can't do that in a modern workplace. But
you couldn't do it. You could never do it. It's just
we did. Yeah. Oh, not we. I didn't. So what is your word? Friction maxing.
Friction maxing. It describes a small but growing pushback against ultra-convenient tech, especially AI. So Isabel said that basically instead of making everything faster and easier, some workers are deliberately choosing the slower, more effortful option.
So instead of... this is what's terrible. I use ChatGPT to ask questions like, I asked him about the dog just then, before. Whereas 2-3 years ago, I would have Googled it, lots of different articles, And maybe 10 years ago, I would have got my book out and read my book. Mm-hmm. So are you saying that that friction matching is going back to actually not saying, all right, AI answer this question straight away. It's going to get the book and sitting down with the book.
Yeah, exactly. So basically, it's the antidote to convenience.
Right.
Rejecting shortcuts.
Okay.
So yeah, the article, which is brilliant, you should go and read it, did trace the idea back to Catherine Jezza-Morton.
We have some brilliant names on this show. Jezza-Morton.
I don't want to sound like one of those complete a-holes.
You
But
are.
like whenever I see a name starting with a J, I panic. Because it's like, because in English it would be probably Jezza. But then we spent 4 or 5 years in Spain where that would be Jezza. And then we now live in the Balkans where that would be Jezza. So it's like, well, I don't know this person's origin. I don't know where they're from. Which one do I pick that doesn't make me sound like a complete arse?
Yeah.
So I went with Jezza-Morton.
Yep. Fair enough. That works.
Catherine. So Catherine wrote in The Cut about building tolerance for inconvenience. So her concern was actually rooted in parenting. She argued that if everything feels frictionless, children won't experience boredom, and without boredom, they may never develop a love for things like reading or learning to think for themselves.
Both those are boring.
Yeah, exactly. I have seen this called by the Gen Z raw dogging boredom. When they'll just sit in a room, they're not allowed to do anything for 10 minutes. Like they can't even fidget with anything.
I like sitting in the garden, and my morning rituals, I wake up usually about half an hour before Leanne, not because I think we wake up at the same time, it's just I get up half an hour before you. I like to have a cup of coffee, sit in the garden, and my rule is I don't touch my phone until I finish my coffee.
That's a good rule.
And it's lovely because I have all these lovely thoughts, and then it starts getting a bit existential and it gets a bit weird, so then I have to...
So by the time I get up, you're in a full-blown panic.
Exactly. I'm just in the shower, fully clothed, crying. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. In terms of the adult world, though, going back to our article, friction maxing might mean for us things like reading a full document rather than relying on an AI summary. It could mean writing notes by hand instead of using automated transcripts. One learning and development professional in the article quoted, she actively writes everything down and reviews it because she believes she remembers it more that way. Others are turning down quick Teams calls in favour of meeting in person for coffee, even if that means that it's going to be a couple of weeks out. The article also referenced Tim Wu, a US law professor at Columbia University. He is known for his work on technology and media, and a 2018 New York Times essay where he argued against what he called the tyranny of convenience, suggesting that difficulty is a fundamental part of the human experience, and if everything becomes about speed and destination, we're going to lose the value of the journey. Very woo indeed. There's also concern...
Very nice.
No, I'm sorry, that's probably disrespectful. Sorry, I made it funny, okay? There's also concern in the article about what researchers call cognitive atrophy. Took me a minute then. Atrophy. The risk that outsourcing too much thinking to AI weakens our judgment over time. We have actually seen some neuroscience research on that does show that it's true. So there you go, Al. What was it again? Friction maxing.
Friction maxing.
Thoughts?
I saw a great video. In fact, my brother, thank you, Andrew Elliott, Blue Goats Books, his publishing house, which he's published quite a few of our previous guests. I think it's actually the other way around. But anyway, go and look at bluegoatsbooks.com. He said, well, why did I bring him up? Oh, yeah, he sent us a video, which I'm going to talk about next week, but about zennials. And zennials, a zennial is those people who were born specifically between 1976 and 1985. So they're neither millennials who grew up fully with
see, now that's confusing. Why would you call them a zennial? Because surely that would be the person... Yeah, I understand that. But it still sounds like Z, doesn't it? It still sounds like the bits between millennial and Gen Z.
Exennial.
Yes.
Exennial's better. Maybe it is supposed to be said exennial.
Well, I hope it is. Otherwise, they've just ruined it for themselves and everybody else.
My point, which is really weak and diluted now, my point was that when you grow up, because I grew up in that time and you just grew up in that time.
What's the time period?
76 to 84, I think.
Yeah, I'm 84, yep.
Then you remember the time when you were going to go and meet your friends and had no idea whether they were going to be there, whether you'd got the right place. You were out for hours. You remember a time when it was all analog, so you had your tapes and your cassette spat it out and you had to get a pencil to wind it back in.
Yeah.
And then you remember the time when it was all Spotify. and you grew up over that sort of
and the bits in between that were highly illegal.
Napster, all that. God, I think I downloaded most of the internet.
LimeWire.
I remember LimeWire. I loved LimeWire. I used to leave it on all night.
Well, it had to be because it would take like 12 hours to download 1-2 minute song.
It's true.
Oh, good times.
I think the point is that back then we were allowed to be bored and we had no choice but to be bored. So my mum used to say, if you're bored, go out and do something, go out and make something. And so I used to go like make 5-bar gates and all sorts of stuff. But anyway, yes. So that was a bit off topic, but I'm with you. Friction maxing, we should all be doing more of it and stop relying on AI.
Yes. I also think it's worth considering. Oh, sorry. Not going
that excited.
I also think it's worth considering how much friction you currently have in your life anyway.
Right.
Because I'm thinking for some parents, they've got a fair amount of friction in their life, trying to entertain the kids that aren't used to being bored. Mm-hmm. We have a lot of friction in our life because we don't have Amazon. We can't do online shopping.
No.
If we want to do anything in terms of government processes, it literally takes us half a day.
Yep.
And we need to go to 4 different offices, hand in millions of different pieces of paper, and hope for the best. I think we have quite a lot of friction in our lives.
Yes.
So I'm not sure introducing unnecessary friction in our work life would necessarily be the best thing, but I equally totally get in terms of making sure we continue to develop our own nuanced judgment and thinking processes and just keeping our mind quiet. We probably need to disconnect and be a bit friction maxing at times. But I think maybe it's maybe looking at the bigger picture of how much friction you have in your life, generally speaking.
Friction is good.
Yeah.
Yes, totally agree.
Anyway. What have you seen them?
Okay, well, it's not necessarily what I saw. It's what Jeremy Klein from Change Work Life podcast saw. He sent me a WhatsApp message because we are that kind of friends. We
As opposed
WhatsApp.
to other kind of?
True.
There's some friends you don't give your number to?
Yeah. I will not be naming them here.
Actually, I have some friends like that.
Yeah. Anyway, so Jeremy Klein, thank you so much. He basically sent me the link about Jack Dorsey from Square, how he got rid of 40% of his workforce. Now, I'm sure you know Jack Dorsey is ex-Twitter.
Of course.
You can always tell if someone was part of Twitter and when they're early by looking at their username on Twitter. His is just @Jack. And then one of the other founders are like @Mo or something.
Nice.
Or it begins with E, I can't remember. Just write in, tell me. Anyway, so he's CEO of Block. This is the company behind, have you ever come across Square or Cash App, Square, those things? Yep. He's announced he's cutting 4,000 jobs. That's 40% of the workforce. I didn't know it was that big, actually, to be honest. So it's nearly half the company is gone. But here's the thing. He didn't just sort of like quietly did it. He actually posted on Twitter. And when I followed the link from Jeremy, it got 43 million views.
Wow.
He didn't blame market conditions or restructuring or that, aligning our strategic priorities. He was completely direct. He basically said, and I'll read, intelligence tools have changed what it means to build and run a company. A significantly smaller team using the tools we're building can do more and do it better. So and this is the thing, business isn't struggling at all. It's actually beat Wall Street expectations last year. Revenue is up massively, and I think the revenue per employee is doubled over the last 12 months.
Well, they've just got rid of half of his workforce.
No. Well, this is the thing.
Oh, sorry, previously.
It will quadruple, but yes, it did double. But the thing is, that's all cool. Like, glad his company's doing well, but
very glad to see another billionaire. It's billionairing. Excellent news, Jack.
Is it the question I've got for you, Leanne, is did he do it right by being brutally honest? The investors thought so. They loved it. The shares jumped 20% the next day because obviously they're looking at efficiency, margins, profitabilities. But the employees, some people. So in Wired magazine, someone reported that the morale was the worst I've felt for 4 years and the overarching culture at Block is crumbling. Maybe that's not a problem, Lee, because essentially, can he run the company on 1,000 people, not 10,000, and use AI to do the rest, and then his revenue per employee is like 10 times? What are your thoughts on the whole thing?
This is quite a swing for Jack Dorsey, isn't it? Because he was quite famously criticised when he was heading up Twitter that it wasn't a very profitable company. But it was a massively large organisation, like running a country kind of thing.
Yeah.
So quite a swing. It's almost like, I won't do that again. I'll go the complete opposite. On one hand, I'm like, the transparency, cool. It would have caused more problems if you would have blamed something else. Then you got all the commentary around, it wasn't about that. It was about AI or people talking from the inside who had either left, exited the business or remained. So I think the transparency was really the only thing he could do to minimise the massive amount of backlash I imagine he is going to get, because this isn't a small round of layoffs, this is half the company. And we know in terms of survivor's guilt, we know in terms of the voluntary turnover after a round of redundancies, it's typically 1%. Mm-hmm. If it's 1% of your workforce is laid off, you'll get a 30% voluntary redundancy rate over the next 12 months. Mm-hmm. So he's laid off 50%. So who knows what? The maths doesn't math in terms of what that number should be for voluntary turnover.
Actually, what he's talking about in terms of actually, he's costing him because I think he's paying like 6 months' salary to everyone, plus 1 month for every year tenure. So the estimate.
How old is this company?
I'd say probably about 8-10 years old.
Okay.
And so I think estimates are around about $500 million it's costing him to get rid of these people. Mm-hmm. So, but I don't know whether that helps at all or not.
Not in the example I was talking about, no. But I think I think you're right in terms of yes, giving runway is good practice, helping people find other alternative employment is good practice, transparency is good practice. My concern is more what this looks like in terms of how Jack stands in terms of AI first versus human first. Mm. And I think at a time where everyone's already quite anxious about that, the people remaining are not going to feel safe in any way because you've done it before brutally. You could absolutely do it again. You've made a very public declaration that you are now AI first. Mm-hmm. I have a feeling that give it another 12, 18 months, organisation will swing back round to be human first as a point of competitive differentiation when the labour market swings back in favour of the employees, when we see that Great Resignation 2.0. I can see Jack flip-flopping in the future. So I think it is, whilst yes, it's probably dealt with in the best possible way, it is brutal, it's still going to have a massive impact on the people being left behind because all the research shows that to be the case. And I think it's a very bold move to kind of declare you are AI first when we're still not entirely sure how this is all going to shake out. So, but then that's because I'm quite human first. So,
Yeah, and I think to be fair on Jack, sorry, Jack, if you're listening, to be fair on Jack, he's, I think he's bullish on AI, and I don't see him turning it around, and I can see him actually going, well, it'd be great if we could have 100 employees running this entire thing, and the rest of it was just agents. So I can see him going down that road.
Anyway, what happens to the world if every organisation does that?
Well, that's the thing you just said. What happens if organisations went human first? Well, some will go human first, some will go AI first. It's not like just because Jack's doing it, everyone's going to do it. I mean, all right, Salesforce got rid of 4,000 people earlier this month, but there was an overemployment at some point in some of these SaaS companies, and now it looks like it's a market correction.
So they've been correcting since just after the pandemic, haven't they? And that was before kind of AI went mainstream. Yeah. There was all that market corrections.
I just don't think you can say, what if everyone does it? Because that's like saying, well, everyone should be vegetarian. It's like, well, they're not going to, are they? Burgers taste too good.
Yeah, so, I know.
Anyway. Well, look, we'll come back to this.
I'm very sad for the 4,000 people because as we know, the deathly arithmetic of compassion, it's hard to empathise with that large number of people, but there are going to be tens of thousands of people impacted by that in terms of the family independence and of those 4,000 people. So yeah, if you are one of those and you are listening, I'm very sorry. It's a very, very tough time. You have my empathy and my sympathy. And
if you are listening to one of those people there, and you could either do one of two things, you could either get in touch with us and we'll do a LinkedIn Live with you and we'll talk about what it was like and your opinions on it. Or perhaps we've had a couple of people, actually, someone from Twitter, I think, who you spoke to a while ago when they were laid off, and you basically did some free coaching for a couple of weeks, and so that's available to you as well. Lee, what else have you seen? What's the last thing on our list?
Well, speaking of leaders being annoying.
Right.
This is a bit of research I came across that was basically looking at what is the impact of leaders' late-night behaviour on employees.
Where'd you see this?
This was in the Journal of Occupational and Organisational Psychology.
Oh, the Jupe.
The Jupe.
The Jupe. I like one of my favourites, that. I do like the Jupe.
Why have I not noticed that before? Brilliant. So this is in the Dupe 2025 study, so fairly warm off the press, not hot, warm.
Yeah.
So basically it was looking at what happens when leaders are sending emails late at night, doing messages, all that type of thing. Mm-hmm. The researchers weren't looking at it in like a technology is ruining life type way. They wanted to really understand what happens when leaders regularly use their phones, their devices outside of normal work hours and how that behaviour impacts the organisation. Mm-hmm. So they introduced something called climate of constant connectivity.
Right.
Which
the
makes
CCC, yeah.
The CCC, exactly. They did actually shorten it to that, the CCC, which is basically meaning that it's a shared belief within the company that employees are expected to be available and responsive during non-work time. It's like always on mentality. Mm-hmm. So what they did is they didn't just ask one person if they felt pressured. They surveyed employees within the organisation and looked for agreement. There needed to be a consensus. So if people within the same company broadly agreed that there was an expectation to be reachable after hours, then that counted as a real shared climate. So they had to kind of reach a critical point of consensus.
Makes sense.
Then separately, they measured how frequently leaders were actually using their smartphones for work in the evenings, at weekends, and that would include sending emails, responding to messages, or making work-related calls. Mm-hmm. Then they analysed whether organisations where leaders were more active after hours were also the ones where employees perceived stronger expectations of this constant availability. And they were. So the researchers found that leaders' after-hours communication predicted a stronger climate of constant connectivity, and that climate in turn predicted high levels of collective emotional exhaustion. So that's not just people feeling drained, that's like a shared sense of real depletion, like on the road to burnout across teams. Am I boring you, Al?
No, I'm listening.
You're like,
I'm listening. Sorry. I was actually thinking about what we're going to have for lunch as well.
Were you?
Yeah.
Oh, what are we going to have for lunch?
I don't know. Chicken pie? No, we're vegetarian
chicken
now.
Pie. Anyway, what was I saying?
You were saying it's collectively across the entire organisation, not just like individually. Some people were feeling a bit burnt out because they were the manager was emailing them. It's like the whole collective feeling was.
Yes, and the researchers said that this comes from conservation of resources theory, which is basically about energy. So when people feel that their time and their attention and their recovery space, that time at home, recovery space, are continually being eroded, then the strain accumulates and then the recovery stops being as effective. It's all very conditional. And over time that shows up as exhaustion, which we know is one of the three symptoms of burnout. So the researchers also describe late night communication as a form of non-family supported behaviour, which makes sense. You're not respecting my family time as a boundary. It doesn't necessarily mean that leaders were doing it deliberately. Mm-hmm. They didn't look at that. It just showed how that behaviour sends a signal to the employee. And if senior people are visibly working into the night, that employees see that as being expected to be responsive outside of hours, at the very least to be valued. The thoughts?
I mean, it makes sense. I mean, we don't need all these studies to know that if you're receiving emails, or even you look at an email and it was sent at 9:15 the previous night, and even if it says something like, no need to reply now or something, there's still, it feels to me either it's an expectation that you should reply, but they're just covering their asses by saying no need to reply. Or worse, it's someone who wants you to know they're still working. Mm-hmm. Because really, in the real world, unless you're like dealing with something which is like, nuclear reactors where you do need to speak to someone straight away, then if you scheduled that email for the next morning, then nothing's going to happen. I mean, again, if you're working in a very time-sensitive operation, then perhaps it would. But that makes sense. And also, I think there are some people, and I do know of some people I did know of them, who used to schedule it, who used to write it at 4:00 and schedule it for like 9:45 to look like they were still working.
I did that yesterday because I needed to ask our accountant a question, but I knew it was a bank holiday.
Right.
So I wrote it yesterday and I scheduled it for this morning.
That's nice.
Yeah.
That's nice. So
little things, isn't it? And I get what you mean. Like it seems, well, that's obvious, that's intuitive that if somebody, a leader is expecting people to always be on, that's going to have an impact. But equally, you're going to hear people going, oh, well, it's just easier for me. I don't expect them to reply. It's not about the intention. the leader could have the best of intentions, but still have this negative impact. And that's why studies like this are quite important. And we know that once people get tired, we're looking at lower engagement, weaker performance, and eventually a higher turnover risk as well. So energy needs to be considered a business resource, and it's not. So in terms of what people can actually do, the researchers did offer some suggestions. They did emphasize it's not one late email that matters. If you send one email, don't panic. It's the repeated nature of that. If you're regularly active at night, if it becomes standard, then it's a problem. So yeah, as we said, scheduled it for the morning. You've got the capability to do that. You can still write your email in the time that you need to, but just schedule it for another time. Second, remove ambiguity. So if people don't know what's expected, they'll assume that they should always be available. So be very clear about response times, what's genuinely urgent, and what the expectations are around working after hours. And third, role model boundaries. And it's so important. If you say to people as a leader, switch off, but never switch off yourself, people notice, and they're going to associate that always on with leadership success. Recovery will only work if it feels like it's legitimate, like you have permission to do it. So leaders, please protect your downtime, do it visibly. Don't be available when you're on holiday. Don't be logging on when you're not very well. Hard boundaries, because it's those behavioural shifts, even though they're small, are going to start to add up to something much bigger and better.
Nice. Thank you very much. Okay, all the links are in the show notes, as they always are. We're going to have a short break, but after that, we've got our truth or lie. And the truth or lie at the moment today is leaders are born, not made. So we'll find out whether that's true or that is a lie in just a second. Welcome back. It's time for truth or lie. You should know by now, that's where we basically take an idea and I put it to Leanne and I go, is it true or is it a lie? Lee, today we are talking about leaders are born, not made.
So when people say leaders are born, they're usually talking about one of two things.
Yeah.
They're talking about leadership as being genetic, so something you inherit, like your eye colour, or they believe that it comes down to fixed personality traits, so things like confidence, intelligence, charisma.
Something I've got all of those things, yes.
All of those things.
Yes.
So that's people who believe that leaders are born. The alternative view is that leadership is a skill, it's something you can learn, and it's something you can train. Researchers have tried to separate these two ideas to study them, and they've done this by studying twins.
That's clever. I hope they call it the Gemini Project.
Maybe they did. Oh, you just reminded me of Dexter. Has anyone seen the new Dexter Resurrection?
Oh, yeah.
It was really good.
Really good?
Yeah. A serial killer's born or made?
I don't know.
I have to get Danny on the pod for that one.
Yes, well, we'll do that. But can I just remind you, we were talking about leaders.
Yes, leaders are. So we're talking about twins. We like twin studies. Psychologists love a twin study. So let's start with the case for that there is a genetic component to being a good, effective leader. So one study has looked at 247 pairs of adult twins. Of those, 183 were identical twins and 64 were fraternal twins. And that's important, and I'll tell you for why. Identical twins share almost 100% of their genes, whereas fraternal twins share about 50%.
Right.
So they're like regular siblings. But importantly, both types of twins will grow up in a very similar environment. So we're controlling variance in terms of the environment.
Right.
What that means is if identical twins are more alike in leadership style than fraternal twins, then that extra similarity could reasonably be linked to genetics.
Got it. Understand it, yes.
Yeah? So the researchers took all these twins. So they have the fraternal twins, the identical twins, and if there's no difference, then it would suggest that there's no genetic component to leadership. If there is a difference, then there is a genetic component. Yeah?
Got it. Okay.
So the researchers measured leadership using 3 pretty well-known questionnaires that assess things like inspirational leadership, rewards-based leadership, confidence, influence, all the things we know make effective leaders. What they found, I was genuinely quite surprised by. So when it came to transformational leadership, so that's the very inspiring, vision-setting type of leadership, that showed a heritability estimate of 59%. So what that means, it doesn't mean that 59% of a person's leadership is genetic. It means that when looking at why people differ from each other in terms of how effective they are at transformational leadership, about 59% of those differences can statistically be linked to genetic differences.
That's quite
So there's
a lot,
100 reasons why somebody's effective at transformational leadership. 59 of those are going to be genetics based.
That is quite a lot.
It is quite a lot, isn't it? Yeah. They found a similar thing as well with transactional leadership. And I think people would probably link this more to management skills. So it's a more structured, reward-focused style of leadership. That showed a heritability estimate of 48%.
So not that different.
Not
Still
that
fairly
different,
high.
just less than half, yeah. That's not the only twin research either. So a much larger study analysed data from 12,000 Swedish twins, and this one looked at leadership emergence. So that's basically when you get a group of random people and then one person will emerge as the leader of the group, like in Big Brother or Who Wants to Be a Millionaire. So my brain had been watching that. I'm a celebrity, get me out of here thing. That naturally a leader will emerge from the group. Psychologists call that leadership emergence.
Right.
So they looked at this with these 12,000 twins, and they found that genetic factors explained about 44% of the variance in women and 37% in men. So again, in terms of leadership variance, there was a strong genetic component of that. Yeah? Mm-hmm. Still with me?
With you so far.
Okay. We've also then looked at personality and how that it potentially affects leadership effectiveness and the genetic components of that. Specifically, there was a study that looked at intelligence and the big 5 personality traits. That includes extroversion, conscientiousness, etc., etc. Then they looked at what we know about the genetic basis of those traits. So how typically they're inherited. What they found was about 70% of the differences in who emerges as a leader could be explained by inherited differences in intelligence and personality. So a much smaller number.
Right, okay.
It's not quite as... So again, in very, very simple terms, if there's 100 reasons that you're a brilliant leader, then intelligence and personality is going to be about 17 of them.
Got it.
Yeah?
Right.
So smaller, but still not a small amount, just less of 20%. So the point is that, yes, the Born argument does actually have real evidence behind it.
So that's the reason for, or the case for. You have a case against, don't you?
I do. And this is when I think this is kind of a little look into how psychologists approach research when we're looking at it as a peer and how we can apply it. At this point, it sounds like leadership is largely written in your DNA, doesn't it? Like it's fairly convincing that it's a significant proportion of that. But if we look at these studies again, the same studies, but with a bit more of a critical view. So if we go back to the first study, the one with 247 twins measuring transformational transactional leadership, yes, transformational leadership showed a heritability estimate of 59%. Transactional was 48%. But that still means that there's a good old chunk that isn't about genetics.
Right. The opposite number, that 100 minus that.
Exactly. So we've got 41%, 52%. So again, almost half is about the environment. It's about experience, about other factors that can support people in being a strong leader. So it's not a huge difference, is it? It's only a little bit more than half. Then if we look at the larger Swedish study, the same stands. Genetic factors explain 44% of leadership variation in women, 37% in men. So actually that's less than half. So if you're flipping that, you actually realize that the majority of leadership emergence is explained by non-genetic factors.
Right, okay, well that makes sense, yeah.
Yeah. This is also where it gets a bit interesting. So the Swedish study dug a little deeper, and it found that for women, heritability was highest during mid-career and significantly lower later in life, meaning that genetic factors, the importance of genetic factors in terms of leadership emergence reduced with age. If this was a genetic component, we'd imagine it would stay fairly stable across life stages. What it's actually showing is that context and the environment that's shifting is changing how these genetic tendencies are showing up. So again, it suggests that context and environment might be more important than genetic factors.
So what we got so far is that I thought that it was actually managers are born, but actually when you look at the statistics and flip them, then it's more likely that managers are made. Is that too simplistic?
It's showing that at the moment, it's a bit of both, isn't it? It's a little bit more than half in either scenario, depending on the study. But it does show that the emphasis sometimes we can put on things can convince us that, oh, yes, it does mean that 59% is genetic. But when you actually flip that, 41% isn't. It's not that much of a difference. In terms of other studies that might kind of go in the against category, there was a survey of some C-level executives, 361 of them. 52.4% said leaders are more made, and 19.1% said they're more born. I'm guessing the people in the middle couldn't decide. It was a bit of both. So 52, so more than half of C-suite leaders suggested that leaders are more made. And that's really important because if executives believe that leaders are made, they're going to prioritize development. And they're going to prioritize investing in people. And that's going to shape opportunity. And those opportunities then shape outcomes. So in terms of the perception of executive leaders, in terms of what leadership is made up of, it's really important here that this is also as much about experience and actually having these skills developed. And then finally, there was a review by the Hugh University that described leadership as both art and craft. And it did acknowledge that some traits may have genetic roots. Roughly a third, they reckon in some cases, things like strategic thinking, communication, judgment, but also that these things are highly teachable. So where you might have a small genetic advantage, it's not to say that's the only component that's going to decide if you are an effective leader. It almost just gives you a little bit of a head start, like many things do in terms of how we're born and where we grow up in terms of socioeconomic background and that type of thing. So it might give you a slight genetic advantage, but it's not enough to be the whole story in terms of whether you or somebody else is going to be a more effective leader at the end of the day. So that's the kind of where we're at with it all. That the verdict is, yeah, it's a lie.
Oh,
leaders are not born. They are more than likely made. It is a nuanced argument. Yes, genetics contribute. Depending on the study, as we saw, inherited differences explain somewhere between kind of a third and half of why people vary in leadership style, but it's as much shaped by experience, opportunity, and development. I also think as well, there's a deeper question here in terms of if we took it very face value, leaders are born, not made. Well, what does that mean for some people with traits that people are born with that make them very risky leaders? So people have these dark personality traits. They're showing very confident, very dominant. We're seeing lots of that in the news at the moment. It can help people rise, but it can also lead to very toxic behaviours. And in an organisation, as we heard last week, that kind of pressure of management can can significantly impact turnover and can damage organisations long term if unchecked. So I think the idea is, don't look for natural leaders. You probably won't be able to spot them. And even if you do, look deeper at character, self-awareness, ability to grow, coachability. That's what's going to make great leaders.
That's brilliant. Now, if you have your own truth or lie, then get in touch because I'd love to put it to Leanne. But right now, it's time for the world-famous weekly workplace surgery. Almost got it right. Weekly workplace surgery, where I put your questions to Leanne. Lee, I have 3 questions, as I always do. Are you ready for question number 1?
Yes.
So, between a rock and a senior leader, here we are. This person writes, I'm in charge of hiring, and after a lot of work, I felt pretty happy with my shortlist of 3 very strong candidates. However, now I've been asked to expedite an application from a close relative of a senior leader. This person, they're not actually unqualified, but they're less experienced than my top picks. I'm getting subtle messages about culture fit and how this could be good for my relationship with leadership. I'm guessing this isn't your direct boss. This is one who's a bit higher. If I choose the relative, I'll risk losing credibility with my team. If I don't, I worry about damaging my own career prospects. Is there a way to push back without making an enemy of this person? Ooh, that is a bit tough, Lee.
You are between a rock and a hard place, aren't you, friend? That's not an ideal thing for your leader to do, is it?
No.
I think here you lean into your recruitment process. It sounds like it's pretty structured. It sounds like you've got some kind of scoring criteria to be able to say they're not unqualified, but they're less experienced than our top picks. I would look back through all of that in terms of how you've scored them across various activities throughout the recruitment process and try and demonstrate why there are people who are a stronger pick. I would then put it in, have a conversation with them and say, look, these are my top candidates that I think we should progress to the next step. Your person did really well and they sounded great, but they are currently in third. To make sure that I'm not conducting any kind of unlawful recruitment process that is discriminatory or favouring one candidate or the other for no evidence-based reason, I'm going to have to suggest that this is the candidate that we progress to the next stage. If they then still push back and put real pressure on you, my thought would be this needs to go in writing. You need to put this down somewhere to protect yourself. Because as I said, this could be unlawful hiring practices if you're not careful. I'd be tempted then to put that into an email, reiterate exactly what you've just said, and then say something like, I'll await your advice in terms of how to proceed. So then you've got some kind of audit trail for it. And it's going to be really awkward and really messy and not great. But the reality is, what's the bigger problem to have? And I appreciate that if you're making an enemy in bunny ears of your senior leader, and that's going to impact your ability to progress in the organisation. My question for you would be, if this is how they approach things in terms of ethical and legal and everything else, do you really want to progress into senior leadership of that organisation? Probably not. So my thought would be, keep your credibility, keep your integrity, keep your team fully, informed about what has happened and what the process has looked like. Don't compromise your standards. And if you are made to compromise your standards, that tells you as much about the organisation as you will ever need to know. So I think you need to stick with your guns from this purely from it's the ethical thing to do, it's a moral thing to do, and it's also more than likely the legal thing that you need to do.
I think your idea of like firing a warning shot and seeing what happens, that's not the right analogy, but I think that's a great idea, to send an email saying, hey, Derek, let's just assume it's a man. Hey, Derek, thanks very much for putting forward Carol for this position. Currently, there are two other candidates who I think are actually better. These are my evidence points as to why. Yeah, these are my evidence points as to why. Just want to check you're okay with me carrying on this way. Brackets, or if you want to come and meet the candidates, something like that. What you're trying to do there is not necessarily get a decision, but just find out how they react. Because if they react and go, absolutely fine, yeah, whatever you think, then great. But if they say that and then corner you in the lift on the way down on a Friday afternoon and go, you better give Carol a job or else you've got problems, you've just answered your own question. So,
agreed.
Yeah, agreed. Okay, question number 2. Where did their spark go? I manage a team of 12, and until recently, a few of them were absolute superstars, proactive, full of ideas, always one step ahead. Now, they're just fine. They hit deadlines, they do what's asked, but that extra energy seems to have gone. Meetings are quieter, emails take longer, no one's bringing new ideas to the table. Now, nobody's resigning, and I don't think anyone plans to, so on paper, everything's fine, but to me, it just doesn't feel fine. It just feels flat. How do I raise this with my team without sounding dramatic or even accusing people of quiet quitting, which sounds exactly what they've done, isn't it, Lee?
It does sound a bit like that, yeah. And I think this is going to have to start with a little bit of reflection on your part. What's changed? Something has changed in the environment, in the organisation, that has now encouraged people to shift their behaviour to be quiet quitting, if that's what you want to call it, or less engaged. Typical things are going to be big decisions made in the organisation they've had no control over, like layoffs, for example. It could be broken promises. If you promised a bonus and that didn't come through, by you, I mean the organisation. Mm-hmm. Promised a bonus, promised promotion, promised reduced workloads once this major project got completed. The final thing could be is if the dynamics of the group have changed. Has anybody left? Has there been any infighting, any incivility that you've recognised? Has the jobs of these individuals significantly changed over the past few months. Something has changed that is environmental, that has now impacted how your team is thinking and feeling about their business, and that impacts how they're behaving, and that's what you're seeing. So you're going to have to do some thinking and investigating in terms of what those potential things could be. Then it's a case of talking to your team about them and saying, look, I've seen a bit of a shift, and that's okay, because we're still hitting deadlines and you're doing everything that must. That spark's gone, that enthusiasm's gone. I'm wondering if it's down to one of these three things that have happened over the last 12 months. Is that the case? Is there something else going on that I should be aware of? And see what people say. You could also do this in survey form if you're not quite confident enough having those conversations. You could use something like the HSE management standards. You could use the RX7 that we use at Oblong to understand how people are thinking and feeling in your business. Really, it's getting down to the bottom of what has changed in the environment that has now impacted the individuals in your team. So rather than think about how to fix it and how to maybe assign blame to people for quiet quitting, figure out why, define the problem first, and then you should be able to think of a solution.
Excellent advice. And also, I probably would think, look at what's happened perhaps in other departments or other parts of the country, because it sounds like if no one's bringing new ideas, then either they're quiet quitting, they can't be asked, or they're a bit afraid. So maybe something happened where someone brought a new idea in a different department and they got shot down for it, or they got blamed for a big project disaster or something. So maybe just bear that in mind. Well, good luck with that. Last question. Lee, do I expose my boss? Now, the temptation to say, do I expose myself to my boss is almost too much, but we want to. So just read it out. I'm part of a major project that directly impacts a big chunk of our revenue. In internal meetings, we all know it's behind. Key features aren't working. Suppliers are causing delays. It's messy. However, when my manager updates the CEO, everything is presented as on track. I sit there listening to it and feel sick. Now, if I stay quiet, I'm complicit. If I go above my manager's head, I could seriously damage my career and probably my manager's. What's the right move here, Leanne? P.S. I do like my manager, and I worry this will be them getting fired. But thoughts, Lee?
Have you had a conversation with your manager about why they're doing this?
Great question.
Because you're already talking about two extremes, really. Two absolutes. You either stay quiet or you go above your manager's head and potentially blow up her position in the organisation. I'd maybe start with a conversation with your manager in terms of why this might be. There could potentially be a very good reason. It could be, so this manager update is the CEO. Is there another stakeholder involved that is advising your manager not to mention this to the CEO? Maybe it's the CFO who is hoping that he's going to land another major revenue project and then they'll tell the CEO what's been going on or going wrong. There could well be factors here that are out of your manager's control or that you don't know about. So I think really the first thing is to have a conversation with your manager. In the scenario that your manager says, I just can't face telling the CEO what's happened because I worry I'm going to lose my job, then it's really a case of counselling them in a way that would be, yeah, but if they find out...
You're going to lose your job anyway.
Yeah. So really it's about damage limitation here and how you can manage that. And I think really it's then making it clear that you are compromising your position through the dishonesty. And really it's being clear that, if you're asked a direct question on this, you're not going to lie. And maybe give her a time frame. Say, I'll give you a week to sort this all out. But if not, I just feel that morally I need to go and speak to somebody else about this because it could potentially be doing longer term damage to the business. It's a balance, isn't it, between protecting yourself and giving your manager the chance to do the right thing. And I think that's where that's a route I'd go down. I'd have that conversation, give them the chance to fix it. And if not, it might be time to be the whistleblower.
Okay, if you have your own question that you'd like me to put to Leanne, then check out the show notes. There's a way to get in touch. I think that's all for now. This Thursday we have... He called himself the father at Facebook because he was about employee number 50 at Facebook and everyone else was about 19 and I think he was in his mid-40s. A guy called Tom Lenoble, really, really interesting guy. Just honestly, I think you're going to absolutely love this episode. If you love stories, if you love drama, If you love drag, if you love Facebook, and if you want to know why, what's the name? What's the guy from Facebook called? Mark Zuckerberg. Why Zuck met him 10 years later for lunch, then you absolutely have to listen to Thursdays. Anything else to add before we go, Lee?
No, the usual. Subscribe, LinkedIn.
Yeah.
See you.
Have a lovely week.
Bye.
See you Thursday. Bye-bye.